Hello and welcome. This is Fireworks on TVC News. It's been over 2 weeks since the peaceful protest that rocked the country and was hijacked by the hoodlums in some states. What initially started as a movement on the social media and later transitioned into action on the streets held the government by the jugular with demands from the youth on issues that linger on police brutality, bad governance, and other vices that affect the growth of the country. The carnage that followed the unfortunate incident in Lagos on October the 20th may have forced the NSAS protesters to retreat as the nation now goes through a healing period. But is this the end of such movements as the issues rage? Welcome to the program. I am Bukola Samuel-Wemimo. Let's take a break. We're glad to have you join us on this edition of the program. My guest today is rights activist Aisha Yesufu, who has been in the forefront of the NSAS protests. Welcome to the program, Madam Yesufu.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, she joins us via Skype, and we're going to start straight off. Aisha, do you think the Judicial Panel of Inquiry set up to look into issues of police brutality is sufficient to help those seeking redress?
So before I go into your to go on to answer the question, one of the things I will need to say is the fact that there was no hijack of the NSAS protest, not at all. The hoodlums that came and had a rampage and destroyed government properties, destroyed individual properties, looted, and also set fire. So lots of buildings were brought in by government. We watch as government brought in these trucks using police vehicles, using military vehicles supervised by police. They started initially by attacking the protesters and maiming them. So some were even killed by them. They destroyed the properties of protesters, and then they went rogue on the same government that brought them in. This is the same thing they do even during election, where they bring in
yes,
thugs.
Aisha, I agree with you to the extent that it was hoodlums that hijacked, and if you're listening to the intro, I said it was hoodlums. But where we differ is whether it was government that brought in the hoodlums or not. That is yet to be confirmed.
No, absolutely not. So this is Aisha Yesufu saying this, and if you have a problem with either NBC, let them find me, and I saying it with all sense of responsibility. It's my opinion, so you can differ. You can have your own opinion, but you can't tell me what to think, because I'm telling you, and I gave specific reasons. The government, these trucks were brought in using government vehicles. They're using police vehicles, using military vehicles, and they were supervised by security agents. Even when some of the hoodlums were apprehended by the NSAS protesters and are handed over to the police refused to arrest them. Initially, they started by attacking, and the normal thing looked away. So I needed that to be very clear. There were no hijack of
But do you have evidence that it was indeed government that brought in the hoodlums through those police vehicles? What evidence can you provide?
Yes, of course I do. The evidence that I have is the fact that police vehicles are owned by police. Military vehicles are owned by the military, and they are all under the federal, the government of Nigeria, of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So that is my evidence, and I've repeated it. I've said it severally, and I've said it again. Let the police. I think the thing that will need to happen, Bukola, is for you to get the police to deny the fact that it's not so, because we have it on record, and the records are in public space, and so we need to know that. So it's just like me asking you, do you have a record that the NSAS protests were hijacked? You don't. Even the burning that happened in I think Orile also that happened repeatedly, it has been put out there that it wasn't the NSAS protesters. The police had killed somebody, one of the talks or something like that, and they set the place on fire. So you cannot come and sit down and make judgment and pass judgment to say that, oh, it's NSAS protesters. But when it's time for where we saw
Let me reiterate that I have not said here that it was NSAS protesters that set fire to any place at all.
But you said what's the meaning of hijack? The hoodlums set fire to you, hoodlums hijack the NSAS protest. It's all the same thing. It's
not NSAS protesters.
So
not NSAS protesters.
Good. We are agreed on that. And hoodlums did not hijack the protest. We are good on that.
Okay, so do you think that the judicial panel is sufficient to help those seeking redress get redress?
Absolutely not. It's not sufficient, but it's a journey. And if it is done the way it's supposed to be done, then at least they'll be able to get justice. But one of the things that has been repeatedly said is the fact that the National Human Rights Commission, and which is part of the demands of the NSAS protesters, the movement, is that the National Human Rights Commission does not have a governing council. And without governing council, there's no legitimacy to these panels. So it brings to question the fact that at the end of the day, when people are indicted, what is going to happen? It's going to mean that there are some people that will be indicted and then they will question the legality of the panels in the first place. You wonder why it is so difficult. Why is it rocket science that up 5 years now the National Human Rights Commission doesn't have a governing council and the executive chairman cannot, it is being said, cannot form all of these panels and cannot give a legitimacy to it. And so you're wondering why is that not being done? Beyond that also is the fact that there have been other panels before. And I remember listening to the governor of Rivers State where he said, oh, panels had been set several times within the state and yet nothing came out of it. All the other panels, they were indictment, but yet the people that were indicted are still working. Some of them are still working in the police force and all of that. So it doesn't give it doesn't give credibility to the panel and it doesn't give someone confidence in the fact that justice will be done. But then the fact that things haven't worked before doesn't mean that this time it will not work. And then we are watching, we're monitoring, I will be evaluating what will happen. But there is more than just the panel. There needs to be justice for the people. Beyond also the justice is that the killings need to stop. The killings didn't stop before the protest. The killings didn't stop during the protest, and the killings haven't stopped after the street protest. It's really unbelievable.
We are going to look sufficiently at the competency of the panel shortly, but let's all continue to look at issues around the panel. Speaking of which, members were denied access to the morgue last week when they paid an unscheduled visit to the military hospital. What's your reaction to this?
Well, it's the same thing that we've all been saying. States really don't have power when it comes to certain things, especially when it comes to security apparatus. The state is as helpless as even citizens. A governor of a state is called the chief security officer, but he really can't do anything other than to buy vehicles for security agencies. So it's part of what we've seen. They went there, they were denied, they were not allowed in. And then as far as the military is concerned and also the police is concerned, they are a federal agency. They have no business with the state and they report directly to the commander-in-chief. And so this is part of the things that is playing out. And already you begin to see that the people who are supposed to be the ones participants in the whole of the panel are refusing to come forward to allow where there's possibility of certain things that needs to be checked, evidence and all of that. They are not coming forth. And so that's where the confidence in the panel, it's really not there. And you can see that the president really hasn't even said anything. There's nothing. Maybe I missed something, but there hasn't been anything from the presidency on that. Even though some said that, yeah, the president had made a statement. And so for this panel to be set up, that should be sufficient. But at the end of the day, really, we have seen it that it is not.
I can just, envisage your reactions to the follow-up questions that will come, being the oath of secrecy that members of the panel are made to sign, at least as far as that of Lagos is concerned, and then the evidence provided by the Lekki concession company that their camera stopped working on the 20th of October during the Lekki shooting that fateful day. But if you were to turn around the conversation to demand, a more favorable hearing for those who have cases against the police on police brutality, what would be your argument in favor of those who are seeking justice?
In favor of those who are seeking justice, it's simple. Accountability and transparency would always trump anything. And where there is opacity, that's where you have corruption and all of that are happening. There is nothing anybody needs to hide. And I think we should have had something like what we have, like the Truth and Reconciliation kind of panel, like the Okuta panel we had, where people will come, let them talk about these things, let these whole things be televised. At the end of the day, let there be justice, and those who are found wanting should face the wrath of the law. The panel is not going to sentence anybody. At the end of the day, they're going to get to where the people it's just it's to indict them and get them to where they will face the wrath of the law. So I didn't see any need for that secrecy where they were asked to sign oath, and then they got there, and it just made the public not to have confidence, like I keep mentioning, in the whole situation of the panel. Beyond that, no, first of all, the government isn't seen as being sincere in all that it has been doing, and it doesn't need all of these things, because perception is everything, and people should be able to feel comfortable in these panels and should know that they are being protected by the state, not being set up by the state, because you have a lot of people who are even afraid to come out because they feel their families they will go after their families, they will come after them just for the sake of being at that panel. And on the issue of the cameras that were taken away, the MD of the, is it LCC they call it, for me, it was quite funny hearing him when he said that the camera stopped and the cameras did not record the shooting. So I'm like, okay, if there was no shooting, so which recording was there supposed to have been? The words didn't match. And he said that the camera stopped at 8 p.m. Well, maybe he forgot that the shootings were actually at around 6:41 to 6:50 thereabouts. So we should be able to have that on. But at the end of the day, everything is reeking of this secrecy. There's no transparency, and that makes things absolutely very difficult. We just what is it? What is it? Is it? I mean, this gaslighting, this is not the first time it's happening. I'm a member of the Bring Back Our Girls movement. And I remember in 2014, when Chibok girls were abducted, the government denied that there was ever any abduction. And up to today, there are still citizens who don't believe that such abduction happened. So the Nigerian government is used to doing this all the time. It's really sad that they have not realized that the world has really moved on. There's technology, and that media has been democratized. It's not like the usual electronic traditional media that we have, where you now put fine on them and all of that, and they're scared to speak the truth. There's social media, and no wonder the reason why they want to clamp down on the social media right now.
When the protest started nearly 2 weeks ago, did you envisage that it would grow and gain dimensions of this proportion?
This particular one, of course, that started on the 7th precisely, the nationwide one that went on the 7th, and before then, the youth of Ugeli in Delta State had really come out. I didn't. I'll be very honest with you. I didn't. I had just come back into the country, and I knew I was at a protest on October 1st. After my quarantine, that was the first day that I could come out. So I came out on that October 1st for a protest. And I did say to Nigerians that, look, many people just sit at home and blame and say all sorts of things, but they never come out. You will see 10,000 retweets, but only 100 at protests. And I did my talk, and plus some of the security agents that were sent there to intimidate the protesters on October 1st. So honestly, I never envisaged what happened. But one of the things that I would tell you that all the other protests that we came at, even the NSAS protests of before, it was mainly protests of empathy. People who felt empathy, who wanted to empathize, that were coming out. But it wasn't like this one. This one is a protest of survivor. A lot of people that came out were actually victims, or had family members who were victims or had been victims, and some of them were even victims many times over. So it was personal to them, and they were saying that, look, we're being killed under the cover of darkness, and we do not want to be killed again in broad daylight. But unfortunately, that's what they got: death in broad daylight.
Now, at a point, the pioneer, quote unquote, of the NSAS movement, Segalink Shegun Awosoya, began to differ on the approach and asked, for a sort of rest from the protest. I think that was the point of departure, correct me if I'm wrong now, with the other voices in the movement. Would you say that this seeming divisiveness was one of the things or the factors that worked against the protests?
Well, there was no divisiveness. Yes, NSTARS, the hashtag NSTARS was coined by someone, by Shegun. And over the years, he has worked on police brutality, on ensuring that people who were facing police brutality were doing all of that. But Shegun, and he has said it many times, is never a protest person, has never been the one to be on the streets. His own is to work with the police when there are victims, and then he goes on to help them there. And for me personally, one of the things I believe in is the fact that there should not be anybody helping anybody, even be the brutality in the first place. There should not be the molestation. There should not be the extortion. So on the issue of the protest, so it had nothing. There was no, how do I put it, breaking up of rank or anything, because he was doing his own thing, which is to ensure you people who are being victims get justice from police and all of that, and then working on the reform and all of that. But then this was a street protest saying the brutality has to stop. So there were two different things. And then Shegun was never on the streets. I remember the first protest in
you'll be
2007.
wrong there. You'll be wrong there. I saw quite a number of tweets, you know, coming at him saying that he may be feeling left out because a movement he started had been taken away or hijacked, so to speak, from him. So I saw quite a number of tweets at him in the midst of the NSAS protests nationwide.
Okay, so it's this way. It's just for example, like you have the hashtag Bring Back Our Girls, right? There's Bring Back Our Girls in Abuja, in Lagos, in New York, in London, in Jos, in Benin, in Akure. So all of these things. So it's not one person who owns that hashtag or would say, oh, I own the Bring Back Our Girls, or somebody else owns it. It's just there, and people we come out, people that have come out in New York, or they have done their Abuja Lagos family, they do their own. So there's no one person taking it away from the other. It's not a company that was formed. It's a hashtag. It's like when we did the no to social media bill. We did that much in December 2015. The person who coined the hashtag, I think her name is Adetutu Balogun, doesn't mean that she owns the no to social media movement. There are two different things. So Shegun has always done his own thing. What I'm trying to say here is that on this one, he wasn't even part of those that were on the street. He wasn't protesting. He was still doing, which he's still doing, for working with the victims and ensuring that they get either when they are arrested, he's able to get them out within that time, free them from the police clutches and all of that.
In the meantime, we'll take a break on fireworks. When we return, we'll look more at emerging reports about the lives of NSAS protesters being threatened, and of course that all important issue of mourners, of persons who are said to have died during the Lekki October 2020 shootings. Look at whether it is true or not that their lives are being threatened. Stay with Fireworks. We'll be right back.